Hey guys, welcome back to my video. As you guys can see, this video is going to be a list of things I like about living in Japan, and I really just want to jump right into the video. But before I do that, I do have to put a disclaimer out there. The first one is that yes, obviously we live in Japan, but we live in northern Japan, not in the city, nowhere near Tokyo or down south. So my list is going to be based on the area in Japan that I live in, which is in the Amari Prefecture. And another disclaimer is that I am a military spouse and we do live on base in Japan. So both of those things will play a part in the list that I have created today. So just keep that in mind as you watch this video. And without further ado, let's just jump right into the video. Coming in at number 9 is clean restrooms. Now I know that doesn't sound like much, but I am very grateful for the restrooms here, other than the ones on base, of course, because we do live on an American base. But everywhere that I've been in Japan thus far, the restrooms have been clean. It doesn't matter if it was the airport, it doesn't matter if it was a rest stop, the mall, everywhere has had clean bathrooms. And I really appreciate that. When I went back to the States, having to deal with the stinky restrooms, tissue everywhere, and then being pregnant on top of that, it's just not a great environment to be in, basically. I definitely appreciate living in a country where they take pride in things as small as the restrooms, because that goes a long way for people like myself who enjoys going into a restroom and it smelling nice and fresh and just not feeling like, you know, I don't want to touch the walls or having urine all over the floor and things of that sort. Now I can't speak for the men's bathroom, but definitely the women's bathrooms are very clean here in Japan. Coming in at number 8 is going to be the traffic. I love that there is not a lot of traffic where I live. Like I said, we do live in northern Japan. We don't live in a city. Where we live is a lot of farmland, so there's not a lot of traffic. So I'm gonna say unless you're in the city, you're not gonna get too much traffic here in Japan. And even then, when we drove in, where was we? We drove from Kyoto to Osaka, and the traffic picked up, but it's not like New York City traffic. It's not like LA traffic. Like, it's not congested in that way. So even the cities where there are traffic, it's just not as bad. And so when you're driving here, you can relax. It's not, you don't have to be anxious or on edge or be a defensive driver, because most of the time people will kind of let you go. You don't see road rage here or anything like that. At least I haven't in my experience. So I definitely appreciate that, because for me, when I go back home and I drive in New York, like, I have to be in a particular mindset to drive in New York. I have to listen to like a certain kind of music and just get like, I'm ready. And I appreciate not having to do that here. It seems like Japan overall is just a very relaxing country to be in. Obviously, I'm talking as someone, an outsider living in Japan. As far as the Japanese go, I feel like their life is stressful, because of the work-life balance that they have here. But that's getting onto another topic. But that's what number 8 is. Coming in at number 7 is scenery. If you guys have watched any of my other videos, then you know how beautiful it is here in Japan. The scenery when you're just driving around or going from one city to the next is so beautiful. You get to see the mountains and the beautiful trees, and it's so quieting. Like, it quiets your mind and it almost quiets your spirit, and you just want to stare out the window and let the scenery just fill you up. I do love being in nature. It's something about it that just, it almost centers me. It makes me feel peaceful. I feel at home. I'm most relaxed. Even when I did those mountain hikes, I was terrified, but after a while, like, it's just so beautiful. Being at the top of the mountain and looking down on a town or looking out into the clouds, or just feeling like, wow, how small are we in this world? This definitely made my list because I come from the city. I was born and raised in New York, for those of you who don't know. New York City, not New York State. But there's not a lot of places like this in New York. There are places where you can go hike, and there's beautiful places where the scenery is amazing in the States, but I don't necessarily think I would have gone out of my way to see those places. I'm 32 and I haven't done that thus far. When I traveled in the States, I was basically going from city to city. I genuinely love hiking, and I honestly want to do more of it. And if it wasn't for us coming to Japan and being in a place where there's not much to do except be out in nature, I definitely wouldn't feel the way I do now about getting out, being more active, and and making sure my family is doing the same thing. So I greatly appreciate that, and I absolutely love that about living in Japan. And coming in at number 7 is the accommodations that they have for pregnant women. If you're new to my channel, then you probably don't know this, but I am 8 months pregnant, and I do have an 8-year-old daughter. And when I compare being pregnant with her to this pregnancy, it's completely night and day. When I was pregnant with her, I was living in the States, of course. And with this pregnancy and being in Japan, it really puts things in perspective for me as far as, you know, it's the little things that matter. So for example, in the States, there is handicap parking, and then there is pregnancy parking, right? And they have it on base as well. So pregnancy parking is for, you might see a sign that says for expectant moms only. And then handicap parking, we kind of all know what that looks like. Those are separate parkings. In order to park in a handicap, you have to have the handicap sticker. And then in order to park in the expectant mom's parking spot, you have to be pregnant. And on base specifically, and I know in the States too, there's not a lot of parking for expectant moms. Yes, you might see them at like big department stores, like maybe a Target, possibly a Walmart. I don't even know if you'll see it at the mall, honestly. It's been so long since I've been at the mall. But speaking for being on base here, there's none at the commissary. There's only one at the BX. There's only one at the Torii building. They had one at the E-Club, and it's no longer there. They took it out for whatever reason. There's one at the thrift shop for sure. And there might be some here and there that I'm missing. Those are some of the places that I just know about because I'm kind of always there. But other than that, there aren't any parking spots for pregnant women, which I find so crazy because there's so many of us. There's a whole bunch of pregnant people here, you know. The fact that there's none at the commissary is really shocking, actually. And then the one that they had at, I think it was one, it might have been two, but the ones that were at the E-Club, the fact that they just did away with it, like, how does that make sense? Anyway. But off base, the parking is a lot different. I see more pregnancy parking, and on top of that, the pregnancy parking and the disabled parking is one. So if you see a disabled spot outside of base, usually the sign will have like elderly, pregnant, disabled, and any of those people could park in that spot. Now, I don't know if Japan requires you to have some kind of sticker or some kind of pass on your car to park there. We've parked there several times. We went to the mall and parked in that spot, and we was like in the mall for hours, and we haven't had a ticket yet. But park at your own risk and keep that in mind when you're parking. I haven't had any issues with it. Everywhere I go, there's some kind of accommodation for pregnant women. Again, with the bathrooms, there are accommodations for families and pregnant women, and it's definitely nice to see. And I will say this too, because this mattered to me. Early in my pregnancy, when we went to Thailand, there were so many accommodations for me and my family when it came to getting the tickets. So, for example, on our way back from Thailand, we was in Tokyo, and we was coming back to Misawa. So we was flying from Tokyo to Misawa, and of course, when you get to the airport, you have to get your tickets and all that, and check your bag and stuff like that. And there was a long line for it, probably because we came back on a holiday weekend, but there was a long line for it. But then there is like a special assistance. I don't know if it's called that though. Priority assistance, something to that effect. But it was next to the line, and basically you go inside, and there's like sofas, and you pick a number, and you get a ticket, and you can sit down, and you go to the counter, and there's chairs and stuff like that. And that's for pregnant women, families that have small children, disabled, and like the fact that they had that and I didn't have to stand on the line and wait, because my body hurts now. Like but the fact that they had that was freaking pretty cool. And then like, because I'm the pregnant one and I'm traveling with my family, of course they get that priority too. We also got priority boarding. We was able to board the plane before everybody else, and that was pretty cool. Now when I travel to the States, I'm not saying that they don't do that, but they don't really advertise it as much. When I went to the States and coming back from the States, I was able to board the plane ahead of everyone else, but that's because I took the initiative to do so. Basically, they was just like, if anybody needs extra assistance, you can board now. And I just took that as, okay, I need extra assistance, so I'm gonna go. And no one complained about that. They did let me board the plane. So they do allow it. The only thing is they don't really verbalize it so that you would think that you can board the plane. Another thing that I don't know as well is that in Japan, for priority boarding, they do have a picture, or they had like a poster of the people who qualify for priority boarding. That was pregnant women, again, the elderly, people with small children. And so like, even if you wasn't sure, there's clearly a poster where you enter the plane that says, that has the pictures of the people who qualify for pre-boarding or priority boarding. So I found that extremely helpful. Like I said, it's the little things that count when you're pregnant. Like, you don't want to be standing long, you know what I mean? Like, it's a hassle getting on and off the plane, obviously. It's a hassle to be in a restroom, especially the Japanese restrooms, because some of them be small. I'm very tall, and that can already be uncomfortable. So the fact that they have the bathrooms for moms, and it's freaking huge, or family bathrooms, it's huge, and there's just more space, more accommodations when it comes to parking, and I love it. I'm gonna eat it up while I can. But that's that. I felt like I went in on a tangent, but I definitely had to go into detail about what I meant as far as the accommodations. Coming in at number 7 are the tours that they have on base. I've mentioned this already in previous videos. I've actually done videos about some of the tours that we've done, but there is a ITT office here, and there is an outdoor rec here. So those two places are where you can find tours. Obviously, being in another country, whether you're here with family or you're by yourself, can be scary traveling, especially because the cultures are so different. Obviously, you don't want to be disrespectful. Obviously, you don't want to get lost. But you want to be able to enjoy the country safely and feel confident in doing so. So the fact that this base has tours where you can do that, you can explore, you have a tour guide, and you can create these memories. The tours that they have are good. It's things that people actually would want to do. It's not tours that people aren't interested in. Most of these tours are booked up. They have so many tours that take you to places where people come from all over the world to visit and see these places. And all you have to do is check out the tour, say, okay, I'm going to go here on this date, pay your money, and then everything is basically set up for you. You know, you get a printout of the itinerary. It tells you everything that you're going to do, and you just show up. That's it. You know what I'm saying? So it's so easy. You don't have to worry about driving. You don't have to worry about any of that. What you're going to eat, where you're going to eat. All of that is taken care of for you. Obviously, you have to bring your own money to eat because they're not going to be feeding you, but it's an easy way to get around Japan. It's an easy way to travel, get your feet wet if that's something you want to do until you're ready to kind of like venture out on your own. So I truly appreciate that about living on this base. This base may not have a lot of other accommodations, and they might be slacking in other areas. We are a small base and we are understaffed, but when it comes to the tours and having fun and making sure you can get out there and do all these other things, and yes, they have family friendly things and they have things that are not so family friendly. So they have something for everyone. Coming in at number 4 is community. This is the first time Lou and I have lived on base. This is the first time that we've had to be so involved. This is the first time I've had to be so involved in like his work stuff. I don't know if I mentioned this before, but back in the States, we keep everything separated, right? His job is his job. my job is my job, and we keep those separate. We've never had to live on base before. We never had to live in a different country and live on base. And so because we're in this unique situation, it requires you to kind of build a community. And I'm not gonna lie, I was a little bit apprehensive about that because I am somebody who kind of likes to stick to myself. I don't like to build friendships based on convenience. I've done that in the past, and the only thing it's ever done is bite me in the ass. So to me, those friendships are not genuine. I like to build friendships on bonding and like things we have in common, and I want it to feel organic. It took me a little while, but I do have a community here that I can rely on, and of course they can rely on me. Honestly, I was also nervous about the fact that we live on base. I don't want people to feel like they have easy access to me because I'm just maybe right around the corner or down the block or, 20 minutes away or whatever the case may be, or because, we all, for the most part, shop in the same places. We're gonna see each other a lot, because like I said, we all live on base, or most of us live on base. But either way, you still come to base to do certain things, maybe have lunch or what have you, right? So I was a little apprehensive about people feeling like they just automatically have access to my time or my space. But honestly, the bonds that I've built with the people that I've built, we all kind of value our time and our space, and so no one is stepping over my boundaries, and I don't do that with anybody either. So having the community that I have, especially to being pregnant, it just makes me feel like I'm not alone, honestly. Like, me and my family are not alone here in Japan. It makes me feel like we have family here. We have really good friends here. We have people that we can lean on. And like I said, vice versa, they can lean on us. But it's definitely important, if you're somebody like me and you're a little bit apprehensive at first, I would say hold on to the connections that feel organic to you. Don't feel like you have to make friends right away, or you have to attach yourself to someone because they, show interest in getting to know you. But if it's not organic, it's okay to keep that person at a distance, basically. Not everybody needs to be in your circle. So for me, community had to make the list because it's extremely crucial given our situation. Coming in at number 3 is the ease of traveling to countries nearby. We decided to move to Japan. Obviously, we want to experience the Japanese culture, but we did have it in the back of our mind that we would be able to experience a lot of other countries at a cheaper price and obviously a shorter distance living here in Japan. So knowing that played a role in our coming to Japan, of course, and we've already started exploring countries outside of Japan and we love it. So definitely that had to make the list as well. Travel is extremely important to my family and I. And I think I've said this several times too. It's important for us to experience other cultures. It's important for our kids to experience other cultures. Like, that's something that we want to do and something that we want for our kids. So travel was going to make the list. Coming in at number 2 is I love how Japan is heavily cultured. So for me, this kind of runs deep. Obviously, I am American, and if you know anything about America, you know that we've all migrated to America from different countries, all except, of course, the Native Americans. So America is a melting pot of like cultures and backgrounds and traditions and things of the sort. The issue that I have is that there's not one tradition, right? Because like I said, we all come from different backgrounds, different countries. So what happens is the people who migrate to America bring the culture from their country, the traditions with them, right? And they'll practice that in the safety of their house. And it's like that for each family. And some families, like my own, didn't want to bring over the cultures of their country. When my grandmother came to America, she wanted to keep a low profile. She didn't want to get in trouble. And when she brought her kids over, she wanted them to keep a low profile too, right? So that meant my mom didn't really grow up in a household that was based a lot in her culture and her country's traditions. So then growing up, my sisters and I never got that. You know, we've eaten Jamaican food when my grandma used to cook, which she says don't do that no more, which I can understand. But my mom does not know how to cook Jamaican food, and so if I want to learn, I have to either ask my grandma for recipes or search the internet. And so that bothers me, and I didn't realize how much it bothered me until I had my daughter. I want her to grow up in tradition and grow up loving where her family is from, where her ancestors are from, and things of that sort. The issue with that is it hasn't been taught to me. So that is the thing. But one thing I do love and I'm grateful for is Lou's family, because they do have that. When I go over to his family's house, it's like it feels so warm. I feel so much at home. I can tell, like, you know, they're wrapped up in their traditions. And for them, it's all about like eating good food and like talking and coming together. And Lou talks about Ecuador. You know, he was born and raised there, and he talks about his culture and his country. And so we bring a lot of his culture into the house because I don't have that. Being here in Japan really touches me because I get to experience a culture and experience the opposite of what I grew up in, right? Being in a culture and living in that culture and seeing how the traditions, the religion, the rules and all of that really sculpts and molds the people who live here. And it plays a role in how they act, how they talk, how they think. And it's just, to me, it's really interesting, and I absolutely love it. And I honestly don't think that visiting a place gives you as much information as living in a place, if that makes sense. So like, for instance, if when we traveled to Colombia, we was only there for maybe like a week and a half or something like that. I enjoyed being in Colombia, but a week is not enough time to really indulge yourself in the culture. So if you're not reading books about the culture and things of the sort, and sometimes books don't even do justice. I like talking to people. You know, I like talking to individuals and really seeing what their mindsets are or whatever, what have you. And so living in Japan and being able to live abroad honestly gives me more of an insight to how those things that I mentioned earlier affects the culture and plays a role in the culture, and also helps me to appreciate our cultural differences. And that's why that came in at number 2. So I know that was a long rant about why that came in at number 2, but I just had to me it was necessary for you guys to really understand where I was coming from, and I hope it kind of gives you guys some insight to me, really. Coming in at number 1 is safety. So of course, safety is important all around, and I think that I have definitely loosened the imaginary leash I have on Kylie, and living in Japan and living on base has given her the opportunity to show how responsible she can be and learn responsibility in a safe environment. And it's given me the opportunity to feel comfortable giving her space to do so, right? So not like being that helicopter parent or like having my claws in her shirt and like pulling her close to me, because that's honestly how I was. And if it wasn't for us living on base and being in Japan, that wouldn't have happened. The amount of freedom that Kylie gets now, it's not a lot, but it's still way more than she would have gotten probably ever living in the States. One of the main things I like about Japan is that it's a low crime rate country. So I'm not saying that there's no crime at all. There's always crime, but it's lower, definitely lower than the States. And one of the things that I absolutely love about it is that it's a gun-free country. Unless you are a police or military, you cannot have a gun here. And when I say military, like, that don't include us. Like, we couldn't come here with guns. If you're somebody who carries a weapon in the States, or you just have one in your house and you are military, you could not bring that to this country. So when I say military, yeah, not all military carries guns, just the ones who need to carry guns. So for me, that's important, especially with all the crimes that's happening back in the States, with so many people having access to guns. The issue I mean, there's a plethora of issues, but one of the main ones is that guns are being put into people's hands who don't really know how to use them, right? They don't know. There's no gun education. There's no safety education. There's none of that. So people are dying every day for no reason, or getting injured every day for no reason. Like, you have babies bringing guns to school. Like, why? Why and how? A lot of these incidents and situations, murders, can be avoided. That's why this one came in at number one for me. And then also too, like, let's be real. We're a black family. We're a black and brown family. And in the States, your skin color matters. Our skin complexion, our background, our race, our ethnicity, whatever you want to call it, plays a role in our safety and how safe we feel living in the States. And that's honestly the bottom line. I don't feel like my blackness, my locks, my energy, or whatever people like to call it, I don't feel like that plays a role in my safety here in Japan. I don't feel like that's going to be an issue for my kids here in Japan. As far as safety, now discrimination is different. Not to say that I've experienced discrimination here in Japan. Honestly, if there was discrimination here in Japan, it's more for being an American, not necessarily for being black. That's how I feel. But I haven't experienced discrimination here in Japan. But also too, the discrimination wouldn't then take the lives of my children or my life or my husband's life. You know what I mean? So I feel like I can live with that, versus the alternative, in the States. So another rant. Anyway, that is the list of the 9 things that I enjoy about being in Japan. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If there's anything that you can think of that you like about living in Japan, or maybe a reason for visiting Japan, or if you have a question for why something wasn't on the list, then definitely leave it down in the comments below and I'll be sure to get back to you. I hope you guys enjoyed this video and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye.